Welcome to Affordable Foundations Legacy Impact Through Housing, the podcast that explores how housing shapes communities and creates lasting legacies. I'm your host, Cecilia Casio, and each week we'll dive deep into solutions, challenges, and opportunities in affordable, attainable, and workforce housing. From current housing models to innovative approaches reshaping the industry, we'll explore the policies, investment strategies, and community-driven initiatives that are making a real impact. Housing isn't just about buildings, it's about people, opportunity, and the future we're creating together. We believe everyone plays an important role in affordable housing, whether you're a real estate investor, developer, policymaker, property manager, or someone passionate about creating positive change. Affordable Foundations is your go-to source for insights and inspiration. So let's break barriers, redefine possibilities, and build a legacy together. Welcome to Affordable Foundations, where we talk about housing that heals, people who lead with purpose, and a legacy that we're building through communities. Today, I want to welcome Kiki. Kiki has been someone that I have deep respect for. She's a leadership and culture coach and a former senior executive in multifamily housing and the founder of Vibrant Life Coaching, where she helps professionals. She is passionate about helping professionals navigate through stress, burnout, and she absolutely leads with heart. Kiki brings decades of experience managing affordable housing communities, building high-performing teams, and advocating for the well-being of the people behind the properties. Kiki, tell us a little bit about yourself, as I know I didn't do you enough justice there.
Well, that was lovely because you are so right. I mean, just the words advocate for the teams. Oh, that is me. That is me for sure. So yeah, my affordable housing journey, oh my goodness, hilarious. I lived on one of the properties, and I actually was bringing my kids into the the events that they have in the office. There's like a coordinator there. Well, the lady wouldn't show up, and I'd be there standing with my 3 little kids, and then she was like, you should let Kiki have my job. And so I was like, oh, this is so many years ago. Oh my goodness, decades ago. But they were paying $18 an hour on a Saturday. And I was like, sure, I can bring my kids. I can make some money. Sure. So I actually took her job. So that was like my intro to working there, but it wasn't in the office yet. But 3 months later, I ended up in the office full time. Nobody told me nothing. Nada. I had clothes from Forever 21, people. Like, nobody said a word. And it was so funny. And that's really like the short version. After that, I went through 8 positions in 20 years. 5 presidents, same company, because I'm loyal. I love it. But because the positions that I got in, I was able to develop people. And so each position, I even wrote my own job titles, right? And it was like, this is my spot. I want to see people thrive in their purpose and be successful. And so that's what I did. And, landed on director of training after all that. And that's kind of my short story.
You talk about a short story, but really it isn't. And you worked on affordable housing properties, but you also trained the team members who worked on affordable housing properties.
Absolutely.
And that is one of those focuses that I think is really important, and the value that I saw you brought to the teams when I hired you to come, or when we paid for one of your classes. I can't even remember, but I remember my team members who worked on HUD properties took your training, and they talked about the skill that you brought in there. They were a little surprised, like, I'm being candid, because they're like, we didn't really think she understood. So I think that's really important for you to hit on. Like, this is an affordable housing podcast, but it really
is about the people who work on these properties, our listeners, the investors, those that are out in the community. Everything that our team members do and are impacted by impacts the investment. And to the core, you understood that. So tell us a little bit, why you feel that's so important, and what stands out in that to you, like that you push out to the team members, you push out in your training. So let me clarify, because I'm starting like my
Home
spur
podcast in
moments.
your head.
Yeah. I'm like, here I go, Cecilia. when you
Awesome, y'all.
when
Okay,
you
let
look
me start here.
okay.
So I lived in a affordable housing, and then I started on affordable housing. And inside that, y'all, just to make you laugh, as I'm starting, there's this guy that's there randomly on Saturdays. I mean, this is what happened. This is like a multifamily classic story, right? There's this guy there, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing here? Like, I thought nothing of it. I don't think into things. I'm like, okay, he works here. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, so maybe he'll teach me. No, it was the owner's son. Just hang out on my property, and like, I guess trying to figure out whether I knew what I was doing or what was going on with the property. I didn't know at that time because I was so new. So, like, speaking to all you new people out there, I get you, right? And over that next year, so in one day shy of 2 years, Cecilia, I had gone through 4 positions. So I did the leasing, and then I did the compliance with all the paperwork. I loved that job. I loved it because I like to be organized, and I like to help people, and I like to make it the most efficient, like, process, like, everybody else in the office couldn't stand when I took a day off because they didn't want to do it. I had it so organized. Like, they were like, let Kiki do it. Even though they could have done it. Like, I had my notes there and everything, right? But they just didn't want to, and then from there, the assistant manager positioning and learning all of the rents and the different things and, the rules around it, in a nutshell. And then the manager position. And on that note, when I was put into the manager position, the supervisor gave me a book and said, read this. And I was like, okay. And I learned, because I was very black and white. I was like, okay, it has to be this way. But then when you move into a leadership role, you've got to have that ability to pivot. You've got to have that ability to connect with people on different levels, aside from and merging in all of the rules that you have, right? And so I had to learn that on the fly. Like, there wasn't a class to teach me that. It was just like, here's the book, right? Which was great to read at least something. But then that's where I got my, oh, you know what? I'm going to create this program for our new leadership. I am going to create, like, this is how they can step into, because from the assistant manager to the manager position, right? Especially in affordable, okay? You're going from doer to visionary. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but if you don't have the training on that, you don't know how to pivot. You just keep doing as the manager, and that's not what your role is anymore. Your role is to train your team so they can be successful as well, and not be afraid of that. And so that was my journey. That's why when I landed in, like, the district manager, the tax credit lease up, the, regional supervisor, director of marketing and training role, all those roles, I was like piecing it all together of what people really needed to learn to be the most efficient on these affordable sites.
Well, I think that kind of answers the question that I have here, is how can owners and asset managers become better partners to their team members?
Yeah. To have that, like, what I called it was like a 10-week power leadership. And the new managers, or the ones that, had come into the company recently, maybe from another management company or whatever, like, this one was tailored to, this is personal growth, and this is how you start out as a leader, and it set them on the right path. And I saw huge shifts inside that group and then their teams. I mean, to where they basically all stood up and was like, Kiki, this is amazing. like just the growth, because it caused them to connect, and connection is the huge piece.
Yes, yes, it is. I always say, when we train our people, we train them to be great leaders, to lead their teams with passion and purpose. It doesn't matter if you're an affordable property or a conventional property. Leadership
Right.
is leadership. Ownership is ownership. Our work ethic is the same regardless of what type of property we're on. And I think that's something that we have to remember as trainers out there. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what do you think that leadership misses out there? What is one of the most common challenges that uh, site teams face, affordable site, especially affordable site teams, that they face that leadership often misses?
Sure. Uh, so a couple things on that. So first off, I think that the term a lot, well, okay, especially in multifamily, we are slammed, right, with the paperwork and people coming in, right, and we need the job done. So I think when people say, okay, I need you to be a good leader, there's not like a blueprint, you know, unless somebody has a course or a class, or, people aren't just going to go on and watch videos. They're going to let it play because they're busy. They're handling 50 people in their office, right? And so it has to be a very intentional moment to say, this is the class you're going to go to, or this is when you're closing your door, because I need you to be a better leader, quote unquote, right? But that is specific to growing and training. And when you do that, to answer the last part of your question, is because I feel like there's a disconnect and there's not the right support. There might be like an admin support of, oh yes, you need this for this report, or you need, or here, this is how we're going to connect. Like fill out your phone number and maybe tell me when your birthday is. Maybe if you get a good leader, right? But really good leaders are going to say, hey, like, what's your favorite candy? Hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to travel? Like what, and ask deeper questions, because that's where the connection comes in. But even another layer is what I've seen is if you're really good in multifamily, you get ignored because they have too many fires somewhere else. When I say they, I mean like supervisors, VPs, regionals, owners, like you basically get ignored because you're doing amazing. And that is a real problem, because in my leadership, teaching, research, coaching, all of that, right? It's you have got to identify your top 20%, your top performers, and you need to pour into them, and intentionally pour into them so that they can actually handle those other fires that happen. And so when you restructure and organize it properly, man, you can get so much more done. You can be the visionary again, as the person at the top, whoever that is.
Yeah. You mentioned, leaders and understanding their team members is what I heard. And that goes into the next question for you, because I do believe that's a culture that is created, and it is not just about team members, it's also about the information and what we know about our residents, right? So, you know, being on an affordable property, it's high demand, all the paperwork, all the regulations, and having leaders that balance compliance and culture. You mentioned how the leaders get to know their team members. It's also about how the managers and the team members get to know their residents. So how do you coach people to balance compliance and culture?
Compliance and culture. Well, the first thing, like referencing what I said about, knowing the rules, right? Knowing those black and white things, knowing what you can and can't do, and then giving I'm going to call it a buffer for this podcast.
Okay.
It's like a buffer, okay, where, all right, here's an exception to this. Obviously, you can't do that with fair housing and all of those things. But there are areas that you can find a way to say yes to things, instead of everything just no, 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 where it's so raw, where people can't stand when there's no, grace or buffer, you could say, for, really connecting with a culture. The other thing I would say is expectations. So if in the area of leadership with team, if the expectations aren't even given, set, if the vision isn't before them, how is the team going to perform? They're just going to go day to day, day to day, day to day. And then they might not even feel like they did great that night when they go home. Like, what if they don't understand? So then take that to the residents. If all the residents are hearing is, your lease violation, you can't do this is closed, this is not working, this is, whatever. And it's all negative, 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 and never like, hey, thank you so much for whatever. Your patio looks amazing. I mean, could you imagine sending letters out that say your patio looks amazing instead of here's a $25 fine? I mean, it's, that's how you got to think outside the box and really know. Yeah, and the other thing, and I'm sure you've heard it, people say, like know their names instead of their apartment numbers, and like, so in your group meetings, who's this? And when they come in, just stop. I know you're busy. That's what's crazy about multifamily, but stopping and looking at them and really saying, hi, like, how are you? What's going well for you? Instead of just the, how are you, antics that we give each other, but like really caring about them, I think is huge.
And I think that's the other part, when we talk about burnout, you mentioned some things there that I know I have trained my teams on. And that is change the story, change the dynamics. Let's tell people that live on affordable properties, um, it's, you've got different types of programs and different types of properties, but they do fall in this affordability bracket, which is why they're allowed to live on our properties, right? So I think that one of the things that you basically were saying is how people receive information every day can determine how they see us, not just us as in team members with each other, but as those that work on these assets, because we make an impact on these residents. So when you're looking at a property or you're looking at a company, um, what are the signs that a team culture is breaking down?
Yeah.
And how can leadership step in before it's too late? Like you just mentioned a whole lot of things that we should be talking about or doing, and it improves the energy, of an asset. And when people walk in, they don't have an immediate expectation of being attacked. And I don't mean attacked physically, but just, people have their guard up when they walk into some of these offices. So I think all of that is part of a culture breakdown. So, tell me a little bit about how you would recommend leadership to step in before it's too late. Or if it is too late, how do they reverse engineer that?
That was like 3 questions. Okay. She's
See,
like,
fire, fire, fire.
I love it. Okay. Let me catch them. So breakdown. So on a breakdown, really noticing. So, okay, attitude. You can feel someone's attitude up to 12 feet away, hands down. Okay. So that's going to be first. You've got to pause long enough to see the attitude has shifted. Okay. Because let's just say you're the regional supervisor and you're just checking in. You're coming in, you're going out, you've opened your laptop, you've got 10 emails coming in, and you're not even looking and listening. If you're not doing that, you won't see it. Okay. And so the attitude starts to shift, and when you start asking a question to somebody, you can tell when they're pausing and they're not really giving you the deep, direct answer. They're hiding it. They're hiding something, you know, like, hey, you know, how's it going with your your manager or whatever? Cause let's say it's the assistant or the leasing that you're talking to, you know, just to check in. But you're dialed in and you're looking at them. When you're looking at them, you can tell when they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. I mean, right away, you know, something's wrong, you know, I mean, as a woman, you know, you've got that intuition and you need to go with it. You need to dig a little deeper. Don't attack, just gather information, right? And so like really that if lies start to become, you know, like you call, nobody answers. When you're calling the property, nobody answers. When you ask a question, you're like, that didn't sound right, you know, or it doesn't go with the report, or you feel like you're just getting just an off answer, the same answer every week. You know, something is wrong. If people keep calling in sick, all of those things is a breakdown somewhere. And so for leaders, you gotta dial in, you know, maybe even send somebody else to talk to them if they're not going to talk to you. You know, you need to maybe even schedule an intentional team build. Or, you know, that's where you can send in a coach like me, and then I start asking the questions and somehow we get to the bottom of it. You know, obviously, easy one, the occupancy starts to drop or people start moving out left and right. I mean, all of that is the normal signs, right? That it's going down. And then once you pinpoint it, you've got to take action. You can't just let it go, right? I mean, good leaders take action in a good way. I think that's really what needs to happen, like how to step in early.
Yeah, action is definitely a must. I think the biggest mistake we make is when we ask the questions and then we don't act on them. And so when we do surveys and we get the results and we don't act on them, whether it's intentional or unintentional,
Right.
that sends a message when we don't act on them or we don't recognize them. It's more like, well, why? You know, people start saying, why? Well,
Nobody's listening.
right?
And then
Why they
when
even ask?
they think nobody's listening, they think no one cares. And when they think no one cares, they don't, then they somehow they end up with that attitude about their job. And that sucks. Like that is the wrong road for sure. So if you take the survey, you have to promise yourself you're going to take the time to look at it and then do something about it.
Yeah, and I think that is important here because I feel like a lot of what I hear is we have too much work on us. We have too much work on us. We have too much work on us. So again, whether or not they do for whatever reason, you know, whether it's a cutback in manpower or it's a maybe a process that is overwhelming, lack of training, you know, how many times did you see that? Because I think it's important for us to really hit on that is when people go work on these affordable housing sites, the fact that we throw them in there.
Number one, they're thrown in sink or swim. I mean, it's a multifamily, like everyone knows that.
Yeah. I know that when people feel like they haven't been properly trained or you're not listening to them, you're not hearing them, you're not responding, all of that just continues to stack on each other. Like each feeling is a stack on another. And that causes, especially the past few years, I've really seen that weigh heavily on our team members. Try to figure out how can we help with this, because I think there's got to be some ways that we integrate like mental wellness and team care into our operations without everybody feeling like that's just one more thing. It's actually the most important thing.
Yes.
So,
That's hands down true for sure.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me a
And
little bit
that
about that.
that is why I actually started that course, because I was like, okay. And in 10 weeks, I saw just people go from like having just, man, I mean, just that heaviness of all of that stuff you just listed. And then the attack on that, they're not getting paid enough, you know? And so it's like, why should I even work here? But then when they were put in this course, they're like, they were able to like express how they felt, but then also grow and find their happiness again, find their gratitude in what they're doing, and find those things that really made them feel like they were in their potential, instead of just doing this job for someone who they thought didn't care about them, right? So it gave them that space. And really some simple tips. Oh my goodness. Um, stop just saying, like, I heard HR all the time say, you have to take a lunch. You have to take a lunch. Like it was so ridiculous, because I was like, do you want to go work a day on site and even figure out what that sounds like when you say that? You know what I mean? And because it's so rigid. And like, yes, we need to eat. Yes, we need a break. Yes, we need team wellness and a moment off, right? But it can't be from HR saying you have to take a lunch, right? It has to be the reason, like, your body actually needs it. Like, you hitting the reset button means at 3:30 p.m. you're not cussing someone out just because you have what we call no beans left. Like, and this is just a tip here. Like, you got a jar, you got your energy beans in it, okay? And that's how much you have for the day. Well, if between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., people who are coming into your office and your manager and your regional and then the owners show up and all this happens, like, you're out of beans, you're basically screwed unless you go and reset. Because if you don't, they're getting a whole other version of you. And that's where that like burnout happens. And if that's happening every single day without that pause, and they don't understand what's happening to their brain, to their body, and to all that energy that's happening around them, like that's really what needs to be understood, And what's funny is, I know, like, I don't cuss, but I was writing some notes for this, and it was so funny because I was like, get off your ass. Like, get off your ass and make sure your leader is the first in leading. That manager, you got to get out of your butt. Like, you cannot sit in the seat and just expect everything to go if you don't even help. And so really in that wellness, that day-to-day operations, like, if that manager just thinks, I'm going to delegate from this seat, like, you don't lead with your seat, you walk into your leadership, right? You can. And so that's like a first thing. Like, you need to make sure people take their PTO and don't lose time. Like, you need to be the overseer of that, saying, no, every third Friday you leave at noon. You've got to schedule those intentional leadership development team builds. That way you get the feedback, and that way you instill, you start infusing. It's like when you cook a turkey, you don't just put it in there. No, you want to like inject it with all sorts of like things that make it taste good and all this, right? It's like you've got to inject mood boosting like endorphins into your team if you want them to be well in their day-to-day, to make it from 9 to 5 without cussing anyone out, so they understand where the boundary is in the offices and how people can speak to them. Like, all of that together, like, really, really combined is covered under good leadership. Like, you need to lead first.
Yeah. And again, it starts from the top, right? So what environment are you setting, and how are you checking in with people, and how are you making sure people are taking their time? And when there are shifts in situations or behaviors, when there are shifts in behaviors, let's not immediately move to termination. Let's ask the questions. What has happened here?
Yeah.
What has happened?
Do you know how many times people email me and said, oh, like, my PTO is maxed out, but I can't take a day off. I'm like, why can't you take a day off? Well, my manager said this, or I have to do this, or whatever. And I'm like, seriously, that is horrible leadership. You're literally making them lose money, and their life is way more important. Like their well-being is way more important than whatever needs to get done. Like obviously if there's a fire and stuff like that, like, but there's always going to be work to do. Like that's just the nature of life.
And in our industry, and like you said, I'm going to ask you this question real quick, and then we're going to go come back to this here. What is the number one reason that people leave affordable housing jobs?
Right? I would say too much pressure and not enough pay, and they just can't take it anymore. They just can't take it anymore. Like I was saying, I've saw people like I would be the one where I would say, "Hey, how's it going? Did you get that raise?" And they'd look at me and go, "Are you crazy? Like they didn't give me the raise." And like and it was year after year, and they still poured out their sweat, and because they love their team, or they love the people, or they really love their job, but up top doesn't recognize that. Like there's some weird thing where it's like, I just want to, they just need to do their job. That's what I pay them for. Instead of really looking and saying, I have the power, the influence to make their lives incredible. Where they love their career, they love their job, and they come passionate about it. But if as a leader, like I was telling you, I was sitting with the CEO once and I was saying, hey, happy employees are more productive. And he said to me, it is not my job to make my employees happy. And so for me, like I understand the aspect of no, you can't choose happiness for someone else. Like you have to choose joy. But as an employer, as a leader, you can take steps to influence that. And so he basically said to me, and a Lamborghini would make me happy. Are you going to get me one of those? And I was like, uh-oh, the leadership has shifted right now. And I was like, wow. And this is in an executive coaching, client. So I was like, okay, no, we need to shift the perspective. Even the research shows it's actually 13 to 20% more productive when employees are happier. I mean, like, can you just imagine if you had, let's say the regular, like 10 people on your team and they were all 20% more productive? Like, what? I mean, hello, that is incredible. Now, if you Google it, and Forbes put this out, Google instilled a 20% time rule where in their work week, okay, one day, so 5 days a week, 20% of that, the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of that, which is one day out of a 5-day work week, they let people work on a passion project. So the other 4 days, they're getting all the stuff done, but that one day, it's a passion project, meaning it's something they absolutely love. What does that do for people? It has proper neurons, it's mood boosting, it's all of that. And Google's production went up to 37%. That's
Wow, that's
amazing.
incredible. Yeah. And I thought it was important to bring you on here because I've been watching the different podcasts you've been holding and the different trainings that you've had about burnout, and how you've done an incredible job actually just pushing that out there. I think it's so important. And I'm going to speak from an investor side. It's really hard to make these numbers work sometime, but I understand that if my people aren't happy, and happy means a lot of different things,
Yep.
right? So, like, it's up to the leader to figure out what it is that makes that team member happy or work or motivated, to be there and want to be there. I'm going to tell you from an affordable housing standpoint, you have to have a passion to work on these kind of properties. You have to have a passion to work in our industry long term. It is not an easy one. Dealing, property management teams, executive teams, they are always going. It's nonstop. So it is very overwhelming. And then you layer the paperwork on top of it, and then the different platforms they have to learn, and our residents, and it is a lot for them. And
I
I
think,
Go
and
ahead.
just to speak on that really quick, because what came to me was boundaries and efficiency. So when I did, affordable housing, man, when we had boundaries and efficiency, we were good. Like our residents loved us. I mean, I thought outside the box for a lot of things so that we could get things done on different hours of the day. I mean, I was in there. I'm sure you remember. Like we did a whole tax credit lease up in 6 months. We were 100% occupied. Okay. And after that, it was like, all right, what are we going to do? Keep these residents happy, to connect and all these things. I mean, I sewed uh, the Christmas elf outfits for my team that we wore for 2 weeks straight. And they were all like, this is great, Kiki. I mean, I sewed them in there because they were like overall jumpers. It was super cute. But what it did was it created this culture, and the residents just loved it. And then we were just like, all right. And inside that, I tweaked the scheduling, and I can honestly give one of my tips right now if you want, because I mean it made a massive difference, and we weren't burnt out, you know. So actually, two things. So two tips. My girl who did all of my files, man, was she amazing. And her schedule actually went from like 6 to 2. And I mean, she was so detailed. We were able to handle it after she left, but because she had that uninterrupted time in the morning, none of our stuff went undone. And that was way back when we had to do research, like full research, people, not just these AEC things, right? And so that was like way back when. And so it was so fun to like have her on board and make that time shift, because I didn't have to do that. And so in the afternoon when she was gone, I was out with the people, right? So that was one thing. The second thing is I completely shifted our make ready schedule. And I went from, it was basically Thursday to Thursday or Thursday to Wednesday. So, and I give this tip a lot because, and in my trainings, when I would do it, I would tell them, because if you're stuck Monday through Friday, you're going to never get it done. But guess what? If you walk units on a Thursday and you give actually what happened is I had a board and I would put it up there, and 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, I already had the units listed, and I had them, and people would sign it as they come in. So didn't even have to have a meeting about it. It was literally posted and everybody signed it. And so they knew what units need to be ready on what day. Okay. And so let's say it was the Thursday, maintenance would bring all the keys in, and inside the office, I would train one person a week to walk those units. So I wouldn't be doing it all the time, the assistant or the leasing. So every third week, somebody would walk it. They would write a list, and the maintenance knew they'd have to have it ready by that next day, right? And they'd start working on the next set of units. And they would schedule carpet and paint over the weekend. It was great. So when they came in on Monday, they could actually get it done. And so it went through to Wednesday. I mean, it shifted the whole thing. And then we scheduled our move-ins. Once it was ready, obviously it didn't matter. But, if it needed to be scheduled, it was like, okay, here's the afternoon that we do move-ins. That's how we leased it up so fast too.
It's systems and processes.
See? But if you don't think outside the box and you just come in and think, okay, Monday we're going to go walk units and then it has to be ready by Friday, I mean, you're losing so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one that I heard you talk about, I think is really important, because many times we feel like our hands are tied. We have, earlier when I said, if there's a behavior that changes, you need to ask the questions. So when you have a team member that can or needs to focus on paperwork, provide them the schedule to do so. Now, many times when that happens, you don't see the results. But that right there is a leadership situation there. Like, if you're not seeing results, how is it being addressed? Like, what's the expectation? If you're giving somebody a shift in hours, or you're closing your office for 2 hours, what is the expectation there? And what's the expectation from the regional to the manager to the team members? Like, you have to set the expectations. You have to empower people. You have to inspect what you expect, thinking out of the box to create an atmosphere that is productive for everybody involved and conducive to everything, right? Like, it's got to mesh together. So when I heard you talk about that, it's about the systems and processes and being flexible and adaptable. So in this, with affordable housing, I think in this realm, with all the paperwork we have, there's also a lot of new technology that allows us to cut back on some of that paperwork, but not all of
Yes.
it. Not all
Right.
of it.
I
So,
know.
like, who's doing the training? Like, when we talk about that, I think of how leadership impacts the site team when we do rollouts, when we don't really think of that from beginning to end. Like, if I shift this in here, how is it? It's not just my idea of pushing this program out. And I learned the hard way. This is why I know this one, because I was like, go, 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 go. When I took over a management company, I was like putting these platforms in place, and it was, yes, for efficiency. But it was when I went out there to talk to the manager, I said, hey, how's it going? And she's like, it's great in theory, but it is hard and I can't keep up. So put the brakes on everything, right? Because that experience that she was feeling was impacting the resident experience. So, I think we have to be mindful of that. And I think what you do also trains our leaders to think about those things. So, I think, again, I start taking over here and I stop.
No, no, no. See, I always felt like I was the bridge,
Yeah,
like, because
great.
I came from on site, all the 8 titles, right? And as the director of training, I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to do this training. So, and then somebody be like, oh yeah, we're going to do this training on the 4th. And I'm like, you are not doing a training on the 4th. Rent is due on the 4th. Like, that is not okay. Like, under no circumstances are you going to do that. But that was under my leadership. Right. And I see it too many times where corporate's like, oh yeah, we're just going to pick a day and do this, or that's no, you can't pick a Monday. You can't pick the 4th where rent is, the 3rd, the 4th, where everyone's in the office, everything is happening, and that's just an example. Right. And so I understand that, like, on site, I mean, 1 minute it could be nice and peaceful, and in 3 seconds you could have 50 people in the office. I mean, and I think that's where corporate, like you're talking about, just totally loses, like, the concept of what really happens on site. And then they create this let's just say timeline of, like, oh, I need this, and and then all of a sudden, like, 5 minutes later, when they don't have it, they're like, hey, I don't have it. And they don't understand. There's a fire. Somebody ran into the gate. There's a gusher of water outside. And the manager's, like, sitting in mud.
Yeah. I always tell people, be mindful of what's happening. We as industry tend to let our departments call our site teams and demand. And so they have different levels of supervisors and bosses, and they're getting direction from here, here. And I've always said, no, you report to the regional, and anybody else that requires anything of you should go through the regional.
Regional. Yes. That's good leadership.
You know,
But when there's a leader in place that doesn't see and doesn't enforce and doesn't look to see what's happening, all the departments start calling, and then all departments start making their own spreadsheets on when stuff is due. And the managers, they start to break,
Yeah, and that
emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, they start to break. And that's when the burnout starts to kick in.
and that impacts the numbers. And I'm going to
But
tell you,
everything.
it's really hard. I, like you said, you're a bridge. I'm a bridge on the other side because as an investor and an owner, I work with other owners and investors. So I'm constantly like, hey, let's think about this and let's think about that. This is something that they're dealing with. And from an accounting standpoint, there's so many moving pieces here. And our people on these properties, I think that the thing that we always have to keep in mind is when you're dealing with some of these assets and our employees are dealing with residents that fall within an affordability guideline or bracket, there's already challenges there. So they're not just dealing with their own burnout and their own stressors in their own life. They're feeling they're feeling those feelings that the resident is also putting out there. So we as leaders have to do a better job. This is where I think you come in because you're able to see that from the outside.
Right.
And
Amen.
that's major.
Yeah.
If you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we can't say that enough. Like, just thinking about being on site and, going back to the residents and the pressure that the residents were feeling. And then if they aren't emotionally aware, they come in, they dump it on you. You have to be emotionally aware. And I mean, every single one of those households, I mean, let's just say an average 250 households are having their own set of challenges, right? Or even, positive thing. I mean, it's all over the place. We hear it all, but yes, to have that empathy and knowledge that they're carrying the weight of that, or they're putting their counselor hat on and off, things like that. We as corporate need to have that space to just understand.
And it's not lack of accountability. Understanding
No.
and empathizing is not removing the accountability factor from anybody in the situation, from anybody in that environment. Like, we're still accountable, all of us. Like, we still
Yes.
have to make things happen. We still have to
Yes.
meet the guidelines. We still have to meet the deadlines. We still have 20 reports we have to submit. We've got to send a report to,
Pay all the bills.
right. You got to get the bills in. We got to
Get the money in. Collect the money.
we got to get the resident in. We got to get the lease signed. We got to get the recertification. We've got to.
The auditors are coming.
Right. Inspire's coming too. Oh, and let me tell you, on top of it all, your financials aren't like jiving. So
Super
how are we gonna fix
amazing.
it? How are we going to fix this?
Stop spending money.
and in that whole space, again, it comes down to understanding what the teams are feeling, understanding what the residents are feeling, and making sure that we continue to make that forward movement. Again, training.
Yes.
Training.
Inside that too, when I talked about the top performers and the 80-20, and you need to make a list of who their top 20% is, there is I have like a intentionality thing that you can do with your top 20, because you want to train them to take on that middleman bridge, right? In between all that stress and what corporate wants, and be encouraging in that, because yes, it needs to get done. But what if you have the day from hell? And I mean, you didn't subscribe to that, and it just happened. And now you still have 20 reports due, and it's 7 p.m. because it was the day from hell. What do? You got to make a call. You got to communicate. But on the other end, did you really manage your time well, basically? Did you, and in that, that's prioritization. Did you prioritize right? Or did you not look ahead? Did you not see this coming? And that's always where the growth and the coaching and the leadership starts to happen, because it's like, oh, okay, you're calling me at 7 o'clock and you don't have any of the reports done. Well, why don't you tell me what happened that day? And then what could we have done different? Right? Or who could we have trained to do that? Who could have we delegated that to so you could have done your reports? Like, where is the disconnect? Is it the doer turned into manager and is doing everything, right? Or is it really everyone just got screwed that day? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got to figure it out, but you can't assume that you know what happened that day and it be the same as the last month, right? Now, if it is the same, that's a whole other problem and a whole other podcast.
We'll do episode 2.
Right? I mean, yeah, no, that's funny.
Well, how do you think leadership in affordable housing creates a ripple effect beyond the property itself?
Leadership and affordable housing create a ripple effect beyond that.
Strong
Wow.
leadership in affordable housing. Let's say that. Strong leadership in affordable housing create a ripple effect.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was positive, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, it creates a ripple effect. And I was really thinking, when you said that to me, I thought about the people who actually work there and when they go home and they know that they've done something amazing for people. Like, when I found the property and this price of the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage for my family of 5 was incredible. Like, as the leasing person, you can go home and say, I just made their day. Right. And that creates a ripple effect at home, just for that. If you have that attitude, like, oh, wow, I really helped somebody. Now, for leadership wise, it's almost like you can give people purpose beyond their purpose. Like, right, you hired them to work for you as a first purpose, but the second purpose goes deeper. And that creates a connection. It creates a bond. And when you invest in them and really you learn about them. You learn about their hopes, their dreams, you learn about their goals, and you place those seeds in there and you encourage them to do those things, right? That just creates like fulfillment, loyalty. And when your people are happy, it comes back around and the productivity is higher. And so having that right mindset, that when you take that time to connect, like that ripple effect for that goes into product happiness, productivity, which goes into the residence, it goes into home life. I mean, it just stretches like roots under a tree, you know?
Yeah. I when you were saying that, I was thinking about the ripple effect. And I always say, if we could just help one person, one team member, one resident, just one, the ripple effect that has, just changing that one life, goes way beyond what we could ever measure.
I mean, it goes down to the third or fourth generation. Like, let's say somebody just never had that full-time job and couldn't, and they find multifamily, right? A lot of people say you fall into multifamily, but really it's job security, where you're there, you help people who need housing. It's always going to be there. So if you love people, and you can find your efficiency and your boundaries inside it, it's so amazing.
Yeah,
You know?
it is. And generational impact is my passion. And I think this industry has I'm beyond blessed because of everything that everything and everyone that I've come in contact with in this industry. I cannot even fathom in my mind the generational impact that is going to be here long after I'm gone, but I know that it's there, and that's what I wish for others. And I tell people, don't give up. No matter how hard it gets, don't give up. Never give up. Um, Keep pushing, keep going. So I've got two more questions for you. What advice would you give to someone who is burnt out but still deeply passionate about this work?
Hmm. So I would say you can recover from where you are right now. Like when you recognize the signs, like just like you said, you recognize the sign, like I'm really passionate about this, but something's starting to wear on me. That's what I call cup half full. Right? You've lost half of it, so you need to sit back, you need to reevaluate. And I like to say, find your five. Find your five things that make you happy, those little bitty things that you do every day, because it's going to re energize you to consistently find new ways or be creative in the job that you are. Because, some people just want to be that manager, and you can be the manager. You can be the best manager. You can have fun with those residents. Like you could love it. And that is great. And again, it creates legacy, not only for your residents, but for the people that work for you and for your own family. And not only that, when you do that on the property, like it creates a legacy for the management company, like, and the ownership group, because you're people associate that, okay, I work at such and such, or I live at such and such a property. Well, they're going to carry that viewpoint. And so that's huge. And so if you're feeling burnt out, clearly I have a course for that, I can walk you through that, right? Because it identifies a lot. It identifies like maybe some limiting beliefs that you took on, or where you're not having boundaries, where you need to have boundaries, and to bring you back into an alignment with yourself and your unique rhythm and how you like to do things. Because when you do that, you reconnect to your purpose and you will love it again. Like you can totally recover from that. And if you're empty, you can recover from it again as well. So on that note,
Self-awareness is is really important there. Being self-aware of where you really are, and those are hard sometimes. Those things are hard to recognize, not because we don't recognize them, but because when we say them out loud about what is really happening, we have to admit some things that can be hurtful. And nobody has to tell us. We're our biggest critics, right? Like, even listen, people in this industry, you managers, regionals, I know, like, we
you like to do
are.
it right.
Yeah, we are our biggest critics. So we know, like, we are so tough on ourselves. We're tougher on ourselves than we are on others. And with that, though, I think it's important to recognize that mindset matters. When people say, you know, it's a mindset, it 90% is. There's other things there that get in the way, and we understand that, but the mindset you have makes a difference in how the day goes from the minute you open your eyes. And I tell people, no matter how, I used to, when I was on site as a property manager, and people were having bad days, I'd be like, look, you're human, you're allowed to have a bad day, but when you pick up that phone, I need you to smile. That's it. That's all I ask of you. You can be mad. Somebody walks in, I just need you to smile, because that makes a difference in how that person is receiving you. And sometimes it's that one person that we will make an impact on them, like you said, for a legacy. So it's important for us to be very self-aware and understand that our mindset matters. Your mindset matters. The team members, how we treat them, how they receive it, their perception is their reality. That's the same for the residents.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we need to be mindful of that. And I think in your coaching, I in your training that you've done for my team members, I know that all of these things really help them see what they do from a different light. They had a different perspective. They were always refreshed. So, and we're
Nice.
running out of time, and I know we can go on and on. And
Yeah, and the whole mindset, we could do an episode 3 for
right.
mindset. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. That's fun. But I do want to say this, like, everyone needs the encouragement that only you can give. And so knowing that uniquely you're gifted to give that encouragement, can help you get up the next day, right? And kind of work through things. But it's something that is unique to you, and you're placed there for a reason. You're in that office for a reason, and you're on that team for a reason. You can learn something, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. Well, Kiki, tell us, where can people connect with you to bring team culture coaching into their organization?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my email is Kiki, Kiki, at keystovibrant.com. So that's KEYSTOVIBRANT.com. That's the website also, keystovibrant.com. You can check it out right there. We've got team builds, group coaching, masterminds, 101s. It's amazing.
Well, thank you, Kiki. I truly appreciate you joining us today. And thank you for reminding us that people, not policies or properties, are the real foundation of affordable housing.
Amen.
Yes. If you're a leader in this space, let today's conversation be your sign to check in on your teams. How you lead determines how people live, and the smallest shift in culture can create the biggest impact in someone's day. This is Affordable Foundations, Legacy Impact Through Housing. Until next time, keep building, and don't forget the people doing the building with you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Until next time, stay inspired and committed to building affordable foundations for all. Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of Affordable Foundations, Legacy Impact Through Housing. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a fresh perspective on the role we all play in creating sustainable, thriving communities. Affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, opportunity, and the legacies we leave behind. Every step we take to improve access, challenge stigmas, and drive solutions brings us closer to a future where everyone has a place to call home. Make sure to subscribe to Affordable Foundations on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with others who are just as passionate about making a difference. Follow us on social media for more insights, updates, and stories from the field. And before we go, a special shout out to the incredible teams working on the front lines of our multifamily properties. The property managers, maintenance teams, leasing staff, and all those who make housing possible every day. Your work is the foundation of stronger communities, and we see you. We appreciate you, and we thank you. Until next time, let's keep building a legacy that lasts.